Hello, I'm Chris Fenton with the Fenton Group, and this is our Ask Your Professional segment in which we answer some of the most common questions we get from our clients. And this month, what I want to talk about is the age-old question of, should I sell my house before I buy, or should I buy my next house before I sell? And the thing about this is it really is a chicken or egg question. There is no right answer. There's pros and cons to each way of doing it, and I'll get into those. One thing I do want to say before we get into that is it changes depending on the market. So I'm going to start by talking about a generic market, a very balanced market, and talk about the pros and cons, and then we'll get into market-specific pros and cons. Let's talk first about the pros of buying before you sell. So the benefit of buying before you sell is this. You can go out and look at all the properties, take your time, and find the right house to buy that matches most, if not all, of your wants and needs. And that's a huge benefit. The downside to doing it first, to buying first, is that when you enter into that contract, you're probably most people will be in a situation where they financially need to enter into a contract that is subject to the sale of their house. So they're going to write an offer on the new house, and in that contract, it's going to say, subject to me selling my house at such and such an address. When you do that, you weaken your negotiating position. You weaken your stance in the negotiation because the seller wants to, as you can imagine, sell the house, their house, quickly and as pain-free as possible. When you do that, you're weakening your bargaining position a little bit, because if you put yourself in the seller's shoes, the person who you're buying their house from, they'd like to get into a contract with somebody who's ready to buy now, who's ready to do a quick building inspection, quick mortgage approval, and move on. When we have a subject to the sale involved, that's something that the seller that you're buying from, doesn't have any control over. So as a result, your bargaining position is weakened a little bit. You end up, in my experience, paying a little bit more money for that house. Now, on the flip side, the pro of selling first is exactly that you can walk in, you've sold your property, you can walk into the contract with no subject to the sale. So you're just a regular buyer buying a property, and you have your ducks in a row, you have your mortgage pre-approval, and you can really come in and negotiate from a position of strength. The downside to selling first is that now you have a finite date. You have a contract in place for your property where you have to move out on say 90 days from now. So in 90 days you have to move. That means you have 90 days to find the right house, enter into a contract, do your due diligence, and complete. So you're under the gun a little bit in order of finding the right property, and it's not uncommon for people in that situation to have to settle a little bit. Maybe they don't take as long and they don't find the perfect property. They might find something that's missing a few of their wants and needs. In a strong seller's market like we've been experiencing for the last 12 plus months, this buy or sell conversation takes on extra significance and extra importance because everything is a little bit magnified, right? On the buying side, when you're going to buy, it's really, really difficult to even get an accepted offer in place when you have a subject to sale of a house. For parts of this market, it's been almost impossible. So that leaves us in a position where we have to sell first. But now selling first, we're under that timeline again, and now there's less inventory to pick from. There's less houses to buy. So it creates more pressure, it creates more stress in my experience for the client. So there are a few things that we can do in this market to kind of address this issue. One thing is bridge financing. If we're in a financial position where we can buy a property before we sell and finance both for a period of time with our bank or our lender, that can be a beautiful scenario. There is obviously some risk involved with that, because if you thought your house was worth more than it was and you put it on the market and it doesn't sell, you may have to get that price down to sell, or it may just take a little bit longer. It certainly adds a little bit of pressure. A novel way to address this issue that's kind of crept up lately, that we've only really seen in a very strong seller's market, is putting a condition as the seller in a contract when someone goes to buy your property that says subject to you having X amount of days to go out and find a property. So what I mean is, you put your house on the market, you do all the marketing, you attract multiple offers, let's say, hopefully, but you've told the marketplace that any offer that comes in has to give me time to look for a property. If I don't find a property I want to buy, then I can cancel the contract. And this is, as you can imagine, this only works in a strong seller's market where the sellers are really calling the shots. So you put this condition in place, you maybe have 3 weeks or a month to go out and look for a property, and hopefully you find one to buy. If you don't, then the deal collapses. The downside to doing this, of course, is that not every buyer can or will get involved in a scenario like this. So you're taking your market and you're shrinking it down to a kind of a smaller market, less people and maybe competing for your property. And the last way to really address this issue is to put your house on the market first and take that risk of selling first before buying, but dictating as the seller that you want a very long completion date. You want to have a 3-month, 4-month completion date. So by the time the buyer is contractually obligated to buy your house, you have a very long period of time to go out and find the house of your dreams. And that's probably for most people the best scenario in this market. The caveat there is that if you're going to have that long completion, I think it's a good idea to make sure that the deposit that the buyer puts down on your property is substantial. It's important to have a substantial deposit the longer the completion, the time between subject removal and completion. My name's Chris Fenton with LePage, Pacific Rim Realty, the Fenton Group. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found this information useful. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments or give us a call. We'd love to chat at 250-723-8786. Bye for now.